That was in 1944. I was about 19 years old, I guess. I was only in the service for 2 years. I mean, that's a kind of a short term, but a lot happened in those 2 years. But I wasn't there like the Normandy and those real tough battles they had. I'm Vernon Hoops from Byron, Nebraska, a retired farmer. Actually, I'm really taking life easy at this time. I went over as a replacement. Well, we went to Marseille, France, and from there they took us to the front lines in the 6x6s, if you never know what they're like, and did so at night. Then when I landed at the front line, they put us right in trenches, and it was damp and cold, and it wasn't a very pleasant place to be at that time. We crossed the Rhine River the day I got wounded. I was the first scout, and I was told I was getting tired of it because the first scout is a kind of a dangerous operation. And at this day, we was in a small village, and we had been riding tanks. We had crossed the Rhine River, and had been riding tanks. They'd let you do anything as long as you could move. And we got stopped at a little village, and some few shots. So as a first scout, I was sent out ahead to see if I could spot them. Well, before I spotted them, they spotted me. So that's when I had this bullet in my pocket, and it hit me about right. The bullet came from an angle, and supposedly people think that it might ricochet a little bit, and it was enough to save my soul, because the bullet hit me in the chest right above the heart hair. And so I was lucky and got by on that. I thought I was hit in the chest only. I didn't feel a thing in my arm. For some reason, I guess I just didn't feel as much of that. But until a little later on, I noticed it was my arm, and we have medics with the infantry group, and he came up and bandaged me up, and that was my days in the front lines. This here book was given to me by my pastor, who was, by the way, was German. He gave us each one like this prayer book, and this was in my pocket also. Being on the front lines is pretty dizzy. I probably didn't use my prayer book as much as I should have. At that age, you're pretty cocky. They took me back to the hospital, and they operated out there in a tent out somewhere. And it took 24 hours before they got to me. They had a lot of wounded people they operated. Those doctors really worked. There was just a bullet head hole when I saw it, and when they operated, they had to wait. I guess they waited to the point where they had to open that up, and really had quite a scar there for quite a while. You can't see it so much now. You can see that it doesn't really bother. I did. My buddies, my closest friend got killed the next day, and I had got wounded just without very little resistance. It was a couple of snipers that hit me. We brought a tank up, and they fired one shot out that way, and here they came with their hands up right now. When on the front lines, there were very few that made it without getting wounded or killed. And that was when I was in the front. Of course, I got wounded, and I went over there 17 weeks and was on the front lines. Very little training. Nowadays, the training they get, I know my grandson there, man, those guys put in some tough training before they're ready for that. We were I was 19, I think, at the time, and I'm just feel like I was a kid yet now. I didn't think so at that time, but at that age you do now. 4 of them, 2 in West Point. Yeah, 2 of them went to West Point, and 2 will go to the Air Force Academy. Now this granddaughter, she just graduated from West Point last year. It was last year, wasn't it? And of course, she's taking that training right now for helicopter training. But she can handle herself. The oldest boy, he's in Iraq now, and he hopes to get back here in several months, I think now. The youngest graduate that's going into Air Force Academy, he's just graduating from high school this in a couple of weeks from now. I really have enjoyed those kids. They, like this boy's in the Air Force. He keeps calling me up and telling me what they're doing. He's in England now, and it's quite interesting. It's more interesting for me. I've always loved planes, and he just keeps me filled in on. It's gotten too deep for me. I don't understand what they're doing, but there's some tough training in there for, like the Air Force and the infantry. There is too now. I'd like to be able to take credit for them being where they are now. I can't. I don't know what. They must have had some good recruiters around. We're pretty proud of them kids, I tell you. Well, I often wondered why, why I was left. It seemed like maybe that bullet was so close to hitting me there, quarter of a step would have done it. And I often wondered why God did save me. That you have to feel like He was fortunate that He decided not to take my life, and I hope that I used my life to such an extent that it was worthwhile to someone worthy